Hey, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. Everything you want, nothing you don't. You're sitting in Kana's Corner, and I have a very special guest sitting in with me today, and it would be Mr. David frickin' Hayter. Thank you for joining the show.
Well, hello, Jackie. How are you?
You know, it's really hard not to fangirl over that, I'll be honest.
Well, I'll switch back to my regular pipes for the bulk of the interview. But if you need anything snakified, please let me know.
Oh, we will make sure to let you know, and I will say that I've actually been a Metal Gear Solid fan for quite a while, and like many
Okay.
people, I thought that Metal Gear Solid 4 would be the last one. Were you under the same impression when you guys were working on it?
Uh, no, I actually knew in talking with the producers that there were going to be more, and then I watched um, the publicity very carefully, and what they kept saying was, "This is the last Solid Snake. This is the last game with Solid Snake." And that doesn't mean there's not going to be more games with Big Boss or with Raiden or whomever. So, which I knew there were going to be. So I knew it was a bit of chicanery going on there.
Oh, okay. I remember that the trailers kind of scared everybody because they had that mysterious sort of suicide indication there.
Right, right, and and every legend comes to an end or something, and technically, Solid Snake did come to an end, but that doesn't necessarily mean the end of the Metal Gear world, you know.
Right, exactly. And when did you know that you were going to start working on Peace Walker?
I don't remember offhand, but they tend to uh, they don't let me know either what's coming down the road. Really, I mean they had said that there would be more games. But Peace Walker, they called me probably a month and a half before we started recording it, which I don't even remember when that was. It would have been last year at some point. So, I'm just like everybody else in that I'm waiting to see if there'll be another game, and then my agent gets a call and they say, okay, they want you to do another one, and we get into it.
And now that must be quite a feat to be able to voice that character for so long. Do you kind of feel a connection with him after such a long time?
Oh, yeah, totally. Somebody was asking me the other day what my favorite Metal Gear game is, and I said, I think it's still Metal Gear 3, because even though Metal Gear 4 is even more technologically advanced and it's so beautiful and so epic, and it was very emotional. It was kind of tough to go through all of that, and I knew that he was old and that he was dying, and that really shook me up more than I would have expected. So yeah, I definitely feel very close to Snake, and I'm very honored to have been able to play him for this long. It's really been quite an epic journey.
The emotional pull in 4 must have been quite, I would assume, either taxing or it was either a lot of fun. Did you struggle at all?
Yeah, well, it was both. It's a physical role, and there's and every time I get shot or electrocuted or have to throw up or drop off a bridge or fall to my death, all these things, we have to do all that fresh for each game. And on the last one, I said, don't you have just a library of thousands of these sounds that I've done? Can't we just, go back and take them out? And they said that there's some weird thing in the contract that says if we do that, they have to pay me a bunch more money. So then I wasn't sure what my incentive was to actually do it fresh each time, but I did because I'm a trooper. But in addition to that, I'm old. I'm getting just beat to hell. I get microwaved, and then Meryl runs off with Johnny Sasaki, who's had chronic diarrhea for the past decade, and I get to go to my Alaskan ranch and die. So it was emotionally wrenching on all levels.
If you want me to be actually very honest, the Metal Gear series was the first video game series that brought me to tears.
Oh, well, good. Well, I'm glad. That's very flattering. We do try.
Well, no, definitely, and I think that as a medium, video games are definitely becoming more powerful and more emotional. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I spoke at a video game conference back in '05, '04, '05 in Las Vegas, where they asked me, because I work in the movies as well, what's the difference between the movies and the games? The games have these incredible visuals and the scope, and I said, well, the difference is the writing. They while a lot of Hollywood movies are horrible, they still put a lot of work into the writing and into developing the scripts that they just hadn't at that point been putting into video games. And I think now they're really firing on all levels, and especially Mr. Kojima's games are so story rich and have such great characters that I think the writing's really come along, and thus the emotional impact on the audience is a lot stronger.
Now, you've brought up Kojima, and I actually heard from Jennifer Hale that you speak conversational Japanese.
That's true, yes. Hontonii desu yo. That's naked Japanese.
So I'm curious, does that make it easier to talk to, the big wigs over at Konami and Kojima Studio whenever you need to?
Well, it's funny, Mr. Kojima, I'd never met him until the fourth game. I mean, we had sort of exchanged gifts and letters, but never met him face to face. And then when he came with a computer to play some of Metal Gear 4 for me, and so I wanted to speak to him in Japanese, which I do, but he always, every time I've seen him, he's got two translators on either side, so he can just sort of effortlessly be understood. So they sort of circumvented my somewhat awkward Japanese, so we really mostly conversed in English.
But at the same time, that's quite a feat, since a lot of video games nowadays, and there's all this anime and all that fun stuff, that must make it just a little bit more engaging to hear it in Japanese first.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, and it really helps with the translation of the game. If I get a line that doesn't quite make sense to me, I can have them run it back in Japanese, and I can usually get a sense of what the intention was. And I say, well, they're not saying this, they're saying this. It's more, it means this, so we'll come up with a different line that hopefully makes it cooler and a little more coherent in English.
No, I think that's really neat, because that brings a whole nother perspective to it. I've talked to a lot of voice actors, and I don't know any of them that speak Japanese yet, so you're the first.
Well, I was lucky. I went to high school in Japan. I moved there when I was, my family and I moved there when I was 15, and I lived there for about 4 years off and on. Yeah, I just sort of picked it up, but it's allowed me to do. I've done a ton of anime voiceover and all these things that are really sort of Japanese centric, and it certainly has helped me understand the culture and the storytelling and the dialogue a lot better.
Now, I'm actually curious with Peace Walker, the new game, from the footage and the clips I've seen, do you think it really has sort of a Japanese feel to it, or is it still holding the Western feel that a lot of the games have?
Well, I don't know. It depends on what you mean by that. It's the games are Peace Walker is. It feels to me very much like one of the big console games. It feels to me it's got a lot of story to it and a lot of characters that are, returning or are related to characters that appear in the future. And it's set in 1976, so it's told in the same. I mean, it's still set in the Western world, but I always find all of the games to be somewhat Japanese in the way they tell their stories. Japanese storytelling is more, scene to scene, emotionally driven sequences, whereas American storytelling to me seems more like, you've got Act 1, you've got Act 2, and you're building up to the climax of Act 3. That's a little different from the Metal Gear games. And Peace Walker is very much like, Metal Gear 4, Metal Gear, it's a lot more like Metal Gear 3, really, because it all surrounds a big boss and sort of advances his story quite a bit.
Hey, could you tell us a little bit about any of the basic plotline or any of the struggles that your character goes through?
Yeah, I could, but they would probably shoot my eye out or break my arm. I can't really. I can't really say. I don't know what they've said already, and if I tip something, it gets me into a great deal of trouble. It's happened before, so.
No, I completely understand. We know about those NDAs, but I tried.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's quite all right. I will say, though, that the game, for being a PSP game, does look really nice. It kind of fooled a lot of people, I think, that it was on a handheld.
Yeah, it really, there was a huge amount of dialogue, and it really took a number of weeks to get it done, and from what I've seen, it just looks so beautiful, and it's got the cool sort of cutscenes done in that art, that hand drawn style that they did for the last PSP game for Portable Ops, and it's pretty awesome. We really had fun doing it, and like I say, a lot of people come back that I was happy to see again, and happy to act with in the booth again. So I think it'll be a lot of fun for people, hopefully.
I know, it sounds like it's going to be a great game, and I know I already have my pre-order in for that one.
Excellent.
But we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk about some of the other awesome stuff that David Hayter does. Keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan, everything you want, nothing you don't.
Bob's Bob. Bob's Bob. Bob's Bob.
What is this crap? Are you tired of hearing the same thing over and over? Don't worry, we are too. That's why we made 91.8 The Fan, so stay tuned. We're back, and we're going to branch off from the Metal Gear stuff just a little bit.
You're not just a voice actor. You also divulge into the writing and the screenwriting and everything else like that. Does that sort of help your performance, do you think, having that knowledge?
Does it help my performance? I would say being an actor helps my writing better because I'm able to sort of deliver dialogue to myself and get a sense of how the actors will be able to say it. Being a writer, working on the Metal Gear games, they don't hire me as a writer. They hire me as an actor, so I try not to do and plus they don't want too many changes to the script because they've already made the Japanese game and we're going off of the translation of that. But it does, on occasion, I'm able to say, look, wouldn't this be better if we said it this way, or would it have a little more punch if I sort of rearranged the sentence a little bit? And I always clear it with everybody first, but I think it helps. I think we really made great strides in terms of dialogue and translation since the first game, and part of that is the development of my career as a writer, and part of that is they just got better translators as we went. So yeah, it's helpful from that perspective. Because as an actor, I just want to say the coolest dialogue. So if I can help put that together, that's great.
Just put on your cool shades and flip up your collar, and you're all set.
That's exactly right. Put my spokes in my sleeve,
I have to wonder, does that voice, well, now I wouldn't think it'd be that hard, but when you started and you had to go sort of all smoky and low and gurgly, is that difficult at all?
Yeah, well, as you say, I think it was more difficult on the first game. I was younger and had a clearer voice, I think. And over the course, the first game only took about 10 days to record, and the second game was about 2 weeks, and the third game was about a month, and then the fourth game of the big games, took from February to October of '08, I think. So, they just get longer and longer and more involved, and after a while, like on the first game, I think I'm sort of forcing my vocal cords down into their lowest position, and they sort of ripple and tear and make those straight sounds, and then by game 2, I started to develop a way to do it that wasn't a strain on my voice. I was able to sort of get it out there, and now it's sort of like it's like a voice that I do. I'm able to drop into it with too much difficulty. Like if I'm getting addicted or something.
Oh no, I understand, and I would think for 4, were there any subtle changes you had to make since he is older and he is dying and whatnot?
Yeah, well, I try to do a little different thing for each one where, like in Portable Ops or Metal Gear 3, is really the first appearance of Big Boss, so I tried to make him sound a little younger and a little more, a lot of energy, and then in Portable Ops, because I knew Metal Gear 4 was coming, he was going to be old, I really tried to make him strong and, in his prime. And then for Metal Gear 4, what I did was I said, if the gravelly voice is kind of the iconic sound here, and he's falling apart, then his vocal cords should be falling apart, and it should be getting tougher for him to force air through his vocal cords, and it's just getting more ragged and difficult for him, So that was what I tried to do in the fourth game, and I, thought it would lend it some significant pathos.
That sounds like a hardcore grandpa right there.
Yeah, well, that was basically my choice, was hardcore grandpa. Grandpa who will kill you.
No, that's great, and I think it's interesting to catch the different little changes, and I think that makes the player experience interesting as well, since so many players love the series, and the series itself sort of defined stealth.
Yeah, totally. Well, like I believe it was Mr. Kojima who created the stealth gaming model, and as for the voice, it's such a cool job because the movie portions of these games are so long. It's like 18 full hours of movie, and not including gameplay and action and all that. And so, by the end of the game, people really have been inundated with my voice, and so it's really fun when people hear it that are fans. That it really has a great effect on them. And if people hear it who aren't fans, they're like, well, would you like a lozenge, if you need some sort of throat medicine? I'm like, no, it's the thing that I do, So yeah, it's just great fun to play.
And I'm curious, while mentioning the fans, does the fan reaction still surprise you?
No. I made the mistake of agreeing to host one of the guests of honor at Anime Expo number 8, and that was so intense, and the autograph signings were it was just thousands of people, and I went up to speak. You can see it on YouTube. There's a thing where they said, okay, we're going to have you do a guest lecture, which I've done before. So I was like, okay, great, and I went in, and it was just an auditorium full of people, and I guess it was probably, 7,000 to 10,000 people, and I walked out and sat down, and the guy who was walking with me, says, ladies and gentlemen, David Hayter, and everybody claps and everything, and then he just walks away, and I was like, well, aren't you going to ask me any questions? And he wasn't, so I just sort of sat there and talked for a little bit, and then let them come up and ask questions, and it was insane. And then afterwards, I had to get to a signing or another thing, whatever the next thing on the itinerary was. And I said, well, where is it? And they pointed across the ballroom, which was still filled with thousands of people. And I was like, guys, we're never going to make it. We're, they're going to tear us to pieces. And so they got 7 or 8 security guys, and we just barreled on through, and everybody tried to get autographs and stuff, but we were late, and so we just went on through, and that whole experience was really kind of over the top. So now I'm not really surprised by anything. Now I go to Comic-Con, and it's kind of a breeze.
I mean, I've been to Anime Expo, so I know how it is to get to one side of the convention hall all the way to the other. It's like a 15-minute trip.
Yeah, but the thing is, everybody wanted to ask me questions or have me sign something or do something, and they just, as soon as we stepped out, they all came up. It's so funny because very few people recognize me on the street, or, I mean, it happens on occasion. Sometimes somebody will look at a waiter will look at my credit card and say, oh, I'm a big fan or whatever. But it very rarely happens. But at Comic-Con and Anime Expo, it's like being the Beatles or something for a day. It's really fun, but a little overwhelming.
So I'm going to guess that you don't go to any other conventions besides Comic-Con, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I talked to Jennifer Hale about doing, like, sort of group Metal Gear appearances, and I would do it. The Anime Expo thing, I was sort of, being a guest of honor, I didn't realize it was like 4 straight days of meetings and interviews and talks and lectures and all this stuff, and that was a little difficult with my schedule, but I enjoy a good convention every now and again. I'll certainly do it if my schedule permits.
Anime Vegas is definitely one of the, I guess you could say, hardcore ones. I mean, I think they're almost up to 50,000 people.
Yeah, it was hardcore. Sure.
And now I'm curious, do you have any, besides Peace Walker, do you have any upcoming projects or anything that just came out that you want to promote or talk about?
Well, no, I do, but I can't. Again, I can't talk about some of these things. I am doing. I tell you, I'll give you a little bit of an exclusive. I am doing another voice in a very, very big video game, but it hasn't been announced yet, and they will be upset with me if I announce it before they do. So the people, So I guess the fans should just keep an eye out for an announcement along those lines, and that's all I can say.
I understand. Is there any place that fans can, keep track of anything new, such as, I don't know if you'd even dare try Facebook or Twitter, but maybe a website or anything like that?
I don't Facebook. I've been thinking about Twittering or tweeting or whatnot, but there are like fan sites on the on Facebook that keep pretty good track of what I do, and on IMDb they keep track of all the news that surrounds me. I've been trying to put together a website, like an interactive website, for forever, and I just have been too busy and haven't been able to do it. But hopefully, my company will have something up and running fairly soon, and I'll be able to communicate a little more directly with people.
Well, on the plus side, you are busy instead of, feeling the pains and agonies that is the economy right now.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Last year was bad for everybody, and everybody in the entertainment industry. And amazingly enough, the big writing jobs were very few and far between. And my family and I actually survived on my acting money last year, which was very funny because it's really more of my hobby now. But thank God it was there, because it was bad for everybody. We had a show we were going to take in and pitch to NBC, and they said, well, you can take it into NBC, but they're out of money till the end of the year. And it was like August. So, even NBC was out of money. Even the big studios were out of money. It was terrifying.
Oh, it's definitely scary. I mean, you look at anime, and anime in its own right is kind of dying. And you look at movies, and some of them are doing well, and then you look at video games, and to me it seems like video games are sort of being the one big prevailing media outlet.
Yeah, well, they're certainly strong, and it's Well, it's got a big consumer base, and people are still breaking boundaries and still doing amazing new things. And whenever you have a new, not a new technology, but a relatively young technology, people, it's going to have a certain allure about it that people will be drawn to, I think.
And now I'm curious, is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there?
Well, as far as the listeners go, I just want to thank them all for being so dedicated to Snake and his journey, and that, you know, if you ever do see me on the street, please come up and say hello, and because I do, this is really a special part of my life, and I'm very, very grateful that I have been able to do this character for, you know, the past 12 years, and it's just been an absolute blast. So hopefully everybody has enjoyed it, and if you have, let me know, and if you didn't, just keep it to yourself.
And I'm wondering, before we let you go, would you be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition?
Of course.
Awesome. And we usually ask everybody if they'd be willing to do a bump, aka a line for us.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering if you'd be willing to say, basically, my name is, I do this, and you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan. And if you excuse my selfishness, I would really appreciate it in a Snake voice.
Yeah, of course. 91.8 The Fan?
Yes, 91.8 The Fan.
Okay. You ready?
Yep.
This is Solid Snake, and you're listening to 91.8 The Fan. So pay some damn attention.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure. Do you want another one just for fun?
Sure. If you'd like to have one just of yourself, that way you can kind of promote yourself instead of just Snake.
Okay. This is David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake, and you're listening to 91.8 The Fan. So listen up.
And I will say that I do really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
But for any of you that missed this interview, or why, I will now sneak up to you in a box, a love box, which means the pink one, and cut open your throats. It'll be posted up on the site, though, in the next few days. If you still manage to survive, just keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan. Everything you want, nothing you don't.